Hey guys, I am doing this on my phone today, and I just wanted to try this out and see how it goes. It's going to be a little rant. I'm going to be going all over the world, but primarily I'll be in Metabolism Town. So I have zero notes, zero, nothing. So this is all from my brain, intuition, whatever you want to call it. Metabolism is generally, well, let's talk about a few things. So metabolism is generally the sum of all metabolic, I hate using the definition it's basically all the processes that go on inside of a body to keep it alive. The way we think about it is, how much can I eat and not gain weight? That's really what metabolism is to most people, right? You have a little kid who's skinny as a rail, eats a ton of food, doesn't gain any weight. We view him as having a fast metabolism. You have so-and-so who eats or even looks at some ice cream and then boom, they gain 10 pounds, right? That's how we view metabolism. So let's talk about it that way. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to talk about it in some in vivo or in vitro, which means in like a test tube definition of something that we don't really understand in the first place. We know like basal metabolic rate based on, I think it's like based on like the carbon dioxide you exhale and stuff like that. And we can kind of calculate it based on your size and your dimensions and your muscle mass and your fat mass. And it's just like, why? We're overcomplicating something. Another myth that we like to talk about is, eating more meals a day is going to speed up your metabolism. It's a furnace. Fuel it. Pour gasoline on it. The only gasoline you can really pour on your metabolism, maybe some meth, some cocaine, a little bit of thyroid hormone, something like that. But we're not really going to do that. So, for starters, let's just think about metabolism as, what our body does with the food we put into it. Some people can have a lot more food than others and not gain weight. That's pretty simple. So let's go with that. So, a few factors that go into metabolism would be the percentage of lean mass or muscle tissue compared to your fat mass or your fat tissue. So how much muscle you have to how much fat you have. Generally, people that are pretty lean with a lot of muscle and a little bit of fat, granted they're not on steroids or something else, usually those people that can eat whatever they want are pretty skinny, right? And you like to say that their metabolism is so fast that they can eat whatever they want because, that's their metabolism. So they're skinny as a result of their metabolism. Whereas another side of that coin might be because they are so lean and have a percentage of muscle to fat and maybe certain hormone sensitivities or their body's response to certain hormones, maybe that's why they can eat whatever they want. But no, it's way easier to say that they just have this mystical, magical metabolism that is so fast that they can eat just whatever they want and never gain any weight. Because that's not what I have. And I'll never have it, and that makes more sense. I can just throw all of my blame and self-pity to them. I hate that. I hate that. I really don't like it when we mystify and make like these processes that go on in our bodies like magical, like a unicorn or like a sphinx or a phoenix. Let's leave that for Harry Potter. What I want you to think is your metabolism is more the result of how sensitive or how insensitive you are to certain hormones. And that could be like insulin, cortisol. It could be leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that have to do with how hungry you are and how full you are. Maybe your thyroid hormone. That's like the master hormone, and people just like to talk about how they have a thyroid issue because that's why they're fat. In reality, most people don't have thyroid issues that are fat. But most people that have thyroid issues are fat if they're hypothyroid. But that's not everybody. And it's probably not you. If it is you, stop using it as an excuse and maybe go to your doctor and see if they should put you on some more thyroid. Yeah, we fixed it. Solved. Well, okay, but for everybody else, I want you to, let's go on a little mental journey here. So let's say you're diabetic, type 2, adult onset. Which that name's getting removed now because there's so many fat kids now that are diabetic. But let's just, perfect world, let's say it's adult onset type 2 diabetes mellitus, meaning that your sensitivity to insulin is so bad that when you have a little bit of sugar, depending upon the test you take, when you eat it, your blood sugar stays elevated to a certain threshold after, a set amount of time. you're now labeled diabetic. Or your hemoglobin A1C or the glycosylated, or... That was rude. Sorry, my cat just threw something on the ground. Your glycosylated hemoglobin, or the amount of sugar infused into your hemoglobin, glycosylated, glucosylated, glucose, sugar, sugar to hemoglobin, hemoglobin, sugar, sugar, hemoglobin. Yeah, sure. Is over a certain level, you're now diabetic. Cool. So what does that really mean? Let's just figure that out. Basically, what it essentially means is when I put in your mouth that sugar, your body's really bad about getting that back down. That's what insulin does. Insulin changes some receptors on your cells. They're called GLUTs, which is glucose transporters, GLUTs. And there's like, what is it, like 1 through 6? I'm sure there's a lot more than that, but the primary one is GLUT4. GLUT4 is for muscle and fat, and it's insulin sensitive. So when insulin goes up, there's a little bit of a change in the receptor, and it says, hey, let's like accept the glucose. And that's why when you lift weights and do resistance training, you can induce that change on muscles and not on fat, which is why there's that whole anabolic window bullcrap in the first place, showing that after you work out, you can eat whatever you want because your blood sugar is kind of almost self-regulated. But in reality, you're regulating it yourself by resistance training. A little bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. Let's go back. A little bit. So, when you think about metabolism, I want you to think about whenever you eat something, it's basically how receptive your body is to that. When I was in college, I ate a ton of calories. I didn't really gain any weight. I was pounding so many Mountain Dews. I was trying so hard to gain weight, and I couldn't gain weight at all. And it was just, oh, you got a fast metabolism. In reality, I was pretty lean, and I had a pretty sizable amount of muscle to body fat. Kind of always have been that way. And I was I was prepubescent, so I was a late bloomer. But my body just kind of responded very well. My blood sugar was probably only elevated for a few hours and then whomp way back down again. And I just pooped out a lot of the stuff I was eating. Granted, it was like all fake food and processed and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really matter. But now that I'm 30, I could probably gain weight if I want to, if I added enough alcohol, which is just kind of like empty calories. I can do it. And I didn't used to be able to do it. So what happened? Well, maybe my sensitivity to those hormones went back down again. Maybe my basal metabolic rate went down a little bit. I don't know. I'm definitely not as active anymore, but people don't really like to talk about stuff that they have control over. They like to keep things out of their control because then they can just blame it on that. It's like their crutch, their little metaphorical crutch that they can walk on and blame everything and all their problems on. Let's not do that. So again, that's just kind of that's like my brain, my process, the way I think about it. So if you're going to try and change your metabolism, and we're going to talk about your metabolism primarily in regards to your sensitivity to these hormones rather than your basal metabolic rate, which is this arbitrary number of us setting shit on fire. That's what a calorie is. I think it's like the amount of energy necessary to raise 1 milliliter of water by 1 degree Celsius or something like that. It's just a measure of heat, right? We set something on fire to generate this measurement of how much is in a particular amount of food. We labeled fat, carbohydrates, or sugar, and protein, gave it a numerical value, and then we can then market it very well by telling us how much we should have every day based upon your basal metabolic rate and completely ignoring your sensitivity to hormones, your thyroid hormone, your leptin and ghrelin sensitivity, and all these things. But that's maybe a conversation for another day. All I really want you to take away from this is your metabolism isn't this magical fairy tale land number of how many calories you can burn per day or in versus out, which is what weight loss really is. Granted, it's both more simple than that and more complex. But I want you to think of your metabolism of how well your body responds to what you put into it. And how it responds to what you put into it has to do with what you put into it, when you put what into it, and, your sleep and what you do, like exercise or resistance train, lift weights, heaven forbid, we lift weights. And how stress, cortisol, pretty big role in metabolism. How are you getting out in the sun? How do you feel? There's so many other things that are way more important than just tracking your calories via like MyFitnessPal. It's like obnoxious. It's like so many steps further down the list than you should really be. And it's like viewed as this ultimate all-seeing eye, you know? And it's silly to me to take somebody who's overweight, who clearly doesn't want to be overweight. Maybe they enjoy what they're eating, but they don't like being fat. People who say they like being fat are just lying to you. Nobody wakes up every day and is like, man, I'm so glad it is so hard to just stand up and breathe. Nobody says that. And I think part of the reason why everybody's so, let's be careful here. I think body positivity is a great idea. It's very good to have people being confident in their own skin. However, I do believe it has led to some complacency. Like people they're okay with where they're at and they're okay staying there rather than maybe, I don't know, trying to be the best that they can be. Insert military ad or something like that. But you shouldn't be fat. And you also shouldn't be like 5% body fat. Those people both feel equally bad. Anybody who's 5 or 6% body fat wakes up every day and feels like shit. If they don't feel like shit, they're on steroids, probably to get to that body fat percentage while maintaining the muscle mass that they have. They're both tired, they're both achy, they're both hungry all the time. They're both opposite ends of the same spectrum. Where you want to be is somewhere in the middle, where you wake up, you feel good. You don't really necessarily have to worry about every single thing that you're eating and every calorie that goes into your mouth. You think about what you're going to put into your mouth, but you're not worried and stressing over it because stress sucks. So in this random, overly long, 11-minute plus, probably going to be 13 minutes, rant on metabolism, I kind of just want you guys to take a step back and just be like, okay, it's this number. Maybe it's not this number. It's really just a response that we tried to quantify in order to market. Because everybody wants to market. Everyone wants to talk about how many calories we have. We have reduced calories. Don't ask us about the macronutrients that make up those calories. Don't do that. No, it's less calories. If you have less in than you do out, you will lose weight. And I'm not going to talk about the macronutrients needed to basically whenever you lose weight to dictate if it's mostly muscle fat or water. No. Let's not do that. Let's just reduce our calories so we reduce our weight, and then we don't even talk about weight loss in regards to fat loss. No, we just talk about weight loss. And then you get a bunch of people that just keep losing weight over and over again, gain it back, losing weight, gain it over again, and what they're really doing is losing muscle, which is way harder to gain than fat. Once they lose that, then gain it all back. They gain the water weight back and all the fat back and lost the muscle. So now they're technically a higher percent body fat than they were before. They have less innate insulin control or blood sugar control muscle, and less makes things moving easier muscle. They feel way worse than they do. Their metabolism is even further in the tank because their insulin sensitivity is obviously going to get worse with less muscle. And they keep doing it again and again and again and again. So stop thinking about calories all the time. Like, who cares? I can have as many calories as I want, and unless I have alcohol, I will almost never gain weight. It's really hard without alcohol. Maybe it's like big guns up there sending me a message. But what I want you to think about is your metabolism is essentially how your body responds to calories, and not necessarily the amount of calories, but more importantly, the makeup of the calories that you're putting into your mouth. And we're ending on 14 minutes. Bye.